Hey there, so welcome back to another lesson. This week I want to continue a little bit on what I talked about in the last week's lesson. Using chords or throwing in chords in your soloing as an effect, or not even as an effect, it's more as a natural way to take breaks in your soloing, like piano players do, right? So I talked about that in the previous lesson. So I wasn't sure what to call this lesson. Shout chorus soloing. It's not the best title, I guess, but how to throw in chords in your soloing or something like that. We'll see what I end up calling it. But the idea here is to use so-called shout chorus type playing. So a shout chorus is something that they play in big bands. It's like a repeating riff that you'll hear somewhere in an arrangement of a big band, especially like older Count Basie style big bands. So I guess the most famous shout chorus is this one, right? So you can use stuff like that in your soloing, and my idea here, the kind of exercise I came up with, is to throw in chords in the spaces between those phrases or those riffs. It seems like a natural thing to do. I recommend listening to Count Basie's big band, and because this works best over a blues. A good place to start is the blues. There are tons of shout choruses over a blues. So the first one I'm gonna show you is not exactly a shout chorus, it's an actual tune. C Jam Blues, right? I think you all know this tune. But it works kind of like as a shout chorus because it's a repetitive phrase, right? So we're gonna play it, let's say, over blues in B flats. So here's space, space, and so on. So that's where we're gonna throw in chords. And the idea here is it's a rhythmic effect. So it's not, the idea is not to throw in some super fancy 13 sharp 11 chords or something. First of all, there's no time to grab those chords, and the ear is not gonna pick up on that anyway. You're gonna hear more, it's more of a rhythm thing. So good idea again is guide tones. So let's play the guide tones on the middle set of strings. Right? So if I do that, I play C Jam Blues, and then I try to play chords in between the shots, or whatever you want to call them. It could sound like something like this. 2, 3, 4. I can add more extensions to those little chords or add more notes on top. I think you can use your own taste there to decide what you think works best, but the guide tones that's enough actually. And I wrote them out as just on the downbeats, right? But obviously we're playing swing, so you might want to anticipate or push those rhythms, right? So but for the the simplicity, or for it's easier to write them out as just on the downbeats, right? So again, this is on my Patreon page. By the way, thank you so much to everybody who is supporting me and following me on Patreon. I really, really appreciate it, and I'll let you know what I have some things coming up, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so now I'm gonna make a little backing track with my loop pedal because I'm really sick of using iRealbook. I think the swing feel is really bad, and the iRealbook is great for certain things like learning tunes, so especially transposing and stuff like that, but I think it's damaging to play with, especially the swing. The actual swing feel is really bad, stiff, so it's better to use your own swing feel, as it were. So I'll make a very simple blues backing track with my loop pedal here. Now, I'm gonna play the first example. C jam blues, and throw in the chords in the spaces, right? Here we go. So a couple of things are happening. You have to really know where you are in the blues, what chord is coming up. So that's actually not that obvious that we can do that. So it's good exercise for really, really knowing where you are in the tune. And also it gives you, maybe you'll play chords where you normally wouldn't play chords. So that being able to use space is something that the masters do, right? Like the ability to really use space in a good way. Like Count Basie obviously uses a lot of space. It's like he's not doing anything. His soloing is so simple, but it's actually a bit deceiving because we all know how hard it is to leave space. So this is a good exercise for that. And then, of course, if you're not super strong on where the guide tones are, that's another good exercise. Now, I'm going to continue on this idea and play the chords like I just did, right? But I'm going to improvise. Instead of playing the head of C jam blues, I'm going to play whatever. We'll see how that works. Bear with me. So let's see here. So I try to keep it really simple. It's not actually not that easy to do because you have to kind of think about where those chords are happening. So it's a good exercise. Let's move on to another shout chorus. This next one is something, I don't even know if it's a tune. It's just something that I hear Wes Montgomery play. And so maybe if you know if it's coming from an actual tune, let me know in the comments. So it goes like... I mean, it seems like a stupid idea, right? But it's a great improvisational technique to play a phrase and repeat it over and over. So I think you've all heard people do that, right? Like there's this famous video with Pat Martino and John Scofield when Pat Martino is playing this phrase for such a long time, right? Like it's really cool. It's a cool effect. So I'll play this phrase with chords between it. So obviously the chords are gonna fall on different beats for different riffs. So I'll show you what this sounds like. And I should play the chords too, sorry. Right? So what I'm focusing on here is completely different from most of my videos where I talk about scales and lines and connecting lines and all the rest of it. Here I'm focusing on the groove. And so and I don't really have a formula or a method about how to make it sound like you're swinging, right? It's some people ask me, how do you develop a swing feel? It's really hard to answer that question because we all have different opinions of what a good swing feel is. And I just try to listen to players that I like George Benson, and then I try to sound like them. I just try to get in there and really play along and imitate what they're doing. Working on difficult timing exercises too, like playing in weird subdivisions and stuff like that, can develop a more fine, an ability to really stretch the timing or something like that. I don't know, but this is a good way. This is a good thing to work on that. So now let's make things a little bit more difficult, as usual. And this is pretty easy to do over a blues. You could try to do this over a more regular standard, which is going to be a little bit more tricky because it doesn't necessarily add up, right? Like a blues is something that is repeating, but a standard with a longer form, it might be a little bit more strange. Another thing is, like, a lot of these notes are coming from the blues scale, and you think they would clash if I do this over like a standard, but you'll find that it works really great. So I picked this standard. What is it called? There Is No Greater Love. So let's try to do this over that tune. The same idea over There Is No Greater Love. So let me erase this loop and make another one. noticed that I sped up a little bit there, but then again, that's what we humans do, and the machine iRealbook don't do. So maybe it's a good thing that I sped up a little bit. Who knows? It's better to speed up than slow down. It's my philosophy. So I'm gonna try to play, what's it called? C jam blues over this, and we'll see what that sounds like. See you next time.